Well, thank you all for the warm welcome, Janet, especially. It's good to be back and see all the friends on our early morning coffee Zoom before church begins. It's good to take a rest sometimes, but then it's also good to come home too. So I want to tell you three stories today. Janet said I'm a good storyteller. Well, I'm hoping that by the time I get through these three stories, somehow they will all make sense together. So we're just gonna hope that's gonna happen by the time we get done. Our first story is about the Ides of March. Now, I'm going to make you draw way back into your high school history to ancient Rome. The Ides of March are nothing more than the 15th of the month. So the Ides of March, the 15th of April. This was a major day in the Roman calendar because in 44 BCE, before Jesus was born, Julius Caesar was assassinated. And the reason he was assassinated is because Rome at that time was a republic, and it had a Senate and it had a president, a Caesar. But through a series of battles, Caesar had won a lot of fame and a lot of power, and the Roman Senate was afraid he was going to declare himself king and get rid of the Roman Senate and destroying their power in effect. And so a group of senators got together and said, that we've got to put a stop to this before he gets totally out of control. And so they ganged up on him in the floor of the Senate that day. And the rebellion was led by two men. One was not really famous in history, but the other one was Marcus Brutus, who Caesar considered almost like a son. He was really a good friend. And William Shakespeare says that the soothsayer told Julius Caesar, beware of the Ides of March. But we know that Caesar did go, whether it was actually foretold or not. He did go down to the Senate and he was assassinated. And at the moment of his assassination, again, through William Shakespeare and his play Julius Caesar, when Caesar recognized that it was Brutus who was leading the force, he said those famous words, et tu, Brute, even you, Brutus. And, it's an interesting thought. First of all, history tells us he probably doesn't have enough time to say all of that dialogue. But the point is of the story, here was someone who was betrayed by a friend, a trusted, a dependable friend. Story number one. Story number two, Jesus of Nazareth. Who was Judas Iscariot? Judas, as we know, and we'll hear more about him as we come into Holy Week and on into Easter in a couple of weeks. Judas was also a trusted friend. We don't know why Judas betrayed Jesus. It's a very unclear reason. Some say he betrayed him for the money. I mean, Judas carried the purse. Some say he wanted the leadership. In other words, if Jesus was dead, he'd be the second in command, therefore he'd be in charge. Other scholars postulate that Jesus kept talking about the kingdom is coming, and Judas just got tired of waiting for the coming. And he was trying to force Jesus to show his hand, if you will. We really don't know. But what we can surmise realistically is that Judas was trusted. We forget that back in those days, money was not on a card or on your phone. It was literal physical cash, and someone had to carry it. And the someone who carried it had to be willing to risk his life or her life to protect it. Because obviously, when they were going to be robbed, they weren't going to go for somebody that was, way at the end of the line. They were going to look for the guy that had the money. So we know that Jesus must have trusted Judas to a great extent if he was going to be the one who carried the money, not just for himself, but for all of them, for the lodging, for the food, for the whatever it was that they needed. That was a lot and heavy because it was coin. It was a lot of change. In short, Jesus trusted him and Judas betrayed him. Third story, actually kind of a pulling together of the two. Metaphysical interpretation. I love metaphysical interpretation because in our unity tradition, we talk about the 12 powers of man. And this idea of the 12 powers is that when we were created in our own individual uniqueness, we had a spot of the divine within us. Yet that spot has to be grown, has to be uncovered, has to be awakened. It slowly but surely evolves within us in our understanding, in our consciousness, in our soul. And the 12 powers, or these 12 tools, if you will, are tools that help us to grow, tools that help us to become more aware of this divine life that is within us. Now, each disciple represents a tool, if you will, a power. Judas represents life. Now, be very careful because Judas Iscariot represents life with a small l. That's cursive, small l. He does not represent eternal life with a big L. After he dies, the disciples get back together, and we see in the book of Acts where Peter said, Jesus had 12 of us, so we better have 12 again. And they appointed Matthias as the one who would be the 12th disciple. And it is he who represents this eternal life, this transformation, this transmutation from physical life to eternal life. So, what that says is our physical life with the small l is intimately interwoven to the great mystery of the big L, the big life. We are, and we just sang it. I thought, good choice of songs, gang. The summon song is so perfect because it's asking us to say, do you get it? There is a spark of the divine within you, within me, and are you going to live it into the world? We are the individualization of the great mystery of life that we call God. I love that. I love that. Okay. So each body, see, this is fascinating. Each body that's sitting in the chair, each body that's around you is an individualized expression of God. Not one of us has the whole God, has the whole picture. And be very wary of religions or speakers that say, we know all about God. No, we can't possibly ever know all about God. For God is the great mystery unfolding. So that makes us co-creators with God in life through our individual uniqueness. I can't be you, you can't be me. We are living this life for the intention of bringing more of God life, big L, to the little life that we all live. In the Gospel of John, that opening chapter, that beautiful poetry in the opening chapter of the Gospel of John, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was made flesh. What is that word, if not the creative word of life, now being breathed into the life of everything that vibrates with it? There's nothing outside of that vibration. There is no one outside of that vibration. No matter what we've done or what we failed to do, we are all interconnected. But how aware of that connection we are, that's our job. That's our work. That's where the 12 powers comes in. That's where this understanding comes into us that we are the enfleshment. the incarnational principle. It isn't just Jesus. Jesus was an example, a model, but we all share that same model. But what has to happen is we get to a place just like in our life. Remember, it's hard to remember when we were really small and all of a sudden we started to grow and our clothes didn't fit and our arms felt, we had aches in our bones, everything started moving and we were like, what? And we were breaking out of the shell of baby into toddler and then into teen and then, on and on it goes. But you see, we lose connection to life. Think about this for a minute. Some years ago, many years ago actually, I was having some digestive issues. Not that anybody else has ever had that, but this is just in case you were. And I must have either been reading about the 12 powers or going to do a class or something. Judas represents the faculty of life, physical life. So where does physical life show up in our body if not our reproductive organs? Okay, because that's how we procreate life. So I had my hands on my lower abdomen and I was thinking about this thing about Judas. And I thought, Judas, you've betrayed me. And I was really shocked by that realization. Do you realize that your own physical body betrays you? It betrays you unto death. Think about it. Just like Brutus did for Julius, just like Judas did with Jesus, our own physical body. We call it aging. We call it illness. We call it disease. We call it injury. We call it lots of things. But in the end result, it eventually betrays us unto death. You see, here's the deal. My body, your body promised me. Now, I don't know why I thought it promised me, but we believe that our bodies promise us a vehicle for active participation in the world, right? We walk, we talk, we move, we eat, we go, we dream, we play, we whatever. And when our body doesn't do what we want it to do, when we want to do it, we are angry. Have you ever been angry at your body? I bet when you think about it, you certainly have. It's like, what is the matter? You get up this morning. I got up this morning and said, I never remember that being hurtful. What is going on? What is the matter with you? And who am I talking to? My body. I'm angry that it betrayed me because it's supposed to get up at the same time every day. It's supposed to jump out of bed full of energy, full of excitement, ready to go, yada, yada. And it didn't. And I'm not real happy about that. I'm just saying. All right? And there are times that we say throughout our life, I just wish I was dead. Oh my God, I just wish I was dead. Because what we're really saying is, I'm tired of dragging this body around. And yet, this is really interesting. At the point when we do face death, if we have not made peace with this juncture of small L and big L, we resist letting go of the body. We call it life support systems. It's not life, is it? It's physicality, but it's not life that we're supporting. Your body and my body have been the closest, most trusted friend we have. From the very moment of conception, we have had physical form. Whatever shape, whatever it looks like, however young or old it may be, it's always been with us. And in the end, it is what betrays us. Now, this to me was very fascinating as I sat there contemplating, what is this Judas thing? I was just like, wow, that really challenges me. because we lose track of, or we lose connection with, the intersection of small L and big L. And we do that in several ways. Number one, we don't honor our body wisdom. Some years back, many years ago, when I first got into ministry, I used to facilitate a discussion group at a battered women's shelter. And I had this idea that women who were battered would be very young, like 15 to 25, first relationship, didn't know any better, didn't come from, good families, didn't have an education. And I walk in the door, and there's like 20 women sitting there, most of them aged 35 plus, with 2 or 3 children, had been married to their abuser for 20 plus years. I was shocked, quite frankly. I was truly shocked. And so as the discussion went on, I said, you feel in your solar plexus, down deep within you, that maybe this wasn't the wisest choice. I said, how many of you knew within yourself that you should stay away from this guy, that you should just end it right now? It's nice to know you, nice chatting, but I'm out of here, before you spent 20, 30 years of your life in such an abusive situation? Every woman raised her hand. I was blown away. You mean you all knew 20-something years ago you shouldn't have been involved with this person, and yet you discounted your own wisdom? In this day and age, I think it's really hard to honor our bodies' knowing of being cautious and being hesitant. So, for example, you are going to buy something and it's on sale, and then all the emails start coming. Marianne, it's only going to be on sale for another 9 hours and 37 minutes. You can need to make a decision. Can I add an extra 5%? And you'll take it off. And it's this pressure to make this quick decision that you're probably going to regret if you do. But in the moment, you're so caught up. It's all here, and you struggle to stay present to your own breath that says, whoa, sister, do you really need this? I mean, do you? We lose connection with life. We overdo it, or we fast to the point of underdoing it, neither of which is sustaining to the body's health and wisdom. Here's another one. We fail to appreciate how much anger we have at our body's betrayal day in and day out. And so we suppress it. We think the energy is, the angry energy is all about out there, this and that and the other thing. And then something happens. I call it the fly in the mallet, where there's a fly on the counter and you go, I'll kill that fly, I'm going to kill it. Okay. A fly swatter, one swat would have done the job. You didn't have to smash the counter. And people say to you, where did all that anger? You say to yourself, where did all that come from? Because deep down, we all have a certain anger, a certain energy, a certain sadness, a certain betrayal, a feeling within us that our bodies are letting us down. They are, in many respects, betraying us. It's a repeated cycle. This life, betrayal, and death. What is spring? We planted seeds and we promised them, you'll be okay sitting in here in the dirt. Don't you hesitate. You're nice and secure, and we put you all in the dirt. We give you a little bit of water, a little bit of sunshine, and be fine. And then all of a sudden they're betrayed by their seedness to break open and bloom. And we think, oh, well, that's wonderful. We love the tulips are coming out, the daffodils and all the pretty flowers. Yes, but there was a cost that happened. they were betrayed, if you will, using that language, by the seed that said, I'm going to protect you. Because the protection will never let the flower bloom. We do feel betrayed by our body. And we can follow that path, and we see no value in our suffering. We see no value in the body that we have. And ultimately, we can go down the very dark path. Or we can say, now that's interesting, Marianne. That's interesting. The betrayal and death leads to resurrection and new life. Fascinating. You see, when we recognize that our body has betrayed us, something has happened physically, okay? We begin to be a whole lot more compassionate, don't we? I mean, I remember we were talking about this right before church. I'd hurt myself pretty bad a couple of years ago, and walking my hip and my back, and I couldn't hardly walk. And I was going on a trip, and I had to rent, or not rent, but get a wheelchair to go through the Atlanta airport, which is huge. And I was in the wheelchair, and I could just feel my anger, my betrayal, my pain, my embarrassment. I'm a young woman. I can walk this airport. I've walked it. I'm going to walk it again on Thursday. And the wonderful gentleman who was pushing the wheelchair put his hand on my shoulder and he said, we all need help from our friends every now and then. It just made me cry because I didn't want to feel that. But now when I go through like an airport, I have a lot of compassion for people who need to take the little trolley and who need to wait for the wheelchair that comes, when the plane comes into the dock. I just understand it more than I ever did before. More creative outlets. When we begin to feel suffering and pain in our body, pain, especially emotional pain, that can't be fixed or healed by the medical community. There's a pill and you got rid of it. You begin to do things like you read poetry, maybe even write it. You begin to paint or appreciate art. You begin to listen to music, things that soothe the agitation of the body, things you really wouldn't have done before. You now are opening up to, wow, I get that. I never used to really read poetry, but I read a lot of poetry now. And I enjoy the arts a lot more than I ever did before. Because now that seed has broken open, the betrayal of my body, I can say, now I see a greater creative expression. There's more of a willingness to give and to share. There's a greater depth of gratitude than ever before, because one day of sunshine and pain-free, I tell you what, you are on the go. Everything is fine. So, the soothsayer said to Julius Caesar, beware of the Ides of March. In other words, something calamitous is going to happen to you. Maybe you should not even get out of bed that morning, but as we know, Julius did. What I say to you is, be aware of the Ides of March. Be aware to the inner strings of your body that betrays the vision you have of this young, healthy, youthful, zestful body that now is changing and morphing as you grow and evolve. That life still is full of life, because it's constantly seeking to connect up to the great life and the great mystery of God. And as we cross those bridges day in and day out, it's not a one-way street. We cross them and we come back. We unfold in greater awareness, greater compassion, greater gratitude. We are aware, excuse me, of our bodies. It's not about a loss, even though it feels like a loss. It's about a doorway. It's about a gateway into something bigger, richer, and fuller that we are privileged to uniquely live as who and what we are. Thank you, and God bless.